A memorial service was held on August 5th, 2010, remembering Marilyn Monroe at the same chapel in Westwood where her funeral was held 48 years ago. The event was sponsored by the Marilyn Remembered Fan Club. I am now at the home of the fan club founder, Greg Schreiner, who is also the president and event organizer. Greg's home is a virtual monument to the memory of Marilyn Monroe, and his collection is the envy of Marilyn Monroe fans and collectors around the world. Thanks, Greg. Tell me about Marilyn Remembered and how you started it.
Well, I moved to Los Angeles in 1979, and I wanted to, of course, visit her grave. And I went there and I realized that really no one had ever done any kind of memorial service for Marilyn, and I vowed to do something for her. So myself and a couple other people in 1982 put together a memorial service, and we really loved the response that we got. So we decided to continue doing it, and we've been doing it ever since and up to this year now. It's our 28th year we've been doing it.
Do you have fan club members from around the world? Are they all local?
We have a lot of local people because it is a very active, locally based. However, we have people that belong from all over the world and people that every year attend from all over the world. People, I think, know this is going to be happening now, and they make their plans to be here during August 5th.
During the early years of the memorial, like in '82 and so on, who were some of the people who attended who were actually a part of Marilyn Monroe's professional and personal lives?
We've had a tremendous amount of people that knew Marilyn. People like Stanley Rubin, her producer. We've had B.B. Goddard, her foster sister, Susan Strasberg, her friend. We've had Evelyn Moriarty, her stand-in. Sylvia Beinhardt, her first hair colorist. We've been very lucky to have a lot of people that were involved in her life, and we continue to still have people that were involved in her life speak.
There are still some people from her private life, like Pat Newcomb. Well, that was her professional life, but also I think Eunice Murray's son is still alive, and Dr. Greenson's daughter, Joni. But if someone like Pat Newcomb were to tell their story, do you think they would add anything significantly new to the so-called mystery of Marilyn Monroe's death?
Well, I do think Pat knew Marilyn very well, and it's very possible she does have some more facts that she's not divulged to us. However, I don't think we're probably going to hear any more from her. She's a very private woman, and I think she respects her privacy with Marilyn, and I suspect we will not ever hear any more about her personal life.
Where does she live now, do you know?
Somewhere in Los Angeles. I don't know exactly where.
She's very private. I haven't heard anything about her for many years. If you could carry on a private conversation with Marilyn, say if you had 5 minutes, what do you think you would choose to discuss with her and why?
Well, I think if I had my 5 minutes with Marilyn, I'd first want to tell her how much she's meant to me and how much I really care for her and love her. And let her know that the world really loves her still, and that what can I do for you, Marilyn? What is it that I can maybe do to make your life better? That would be a fast 5 minutes indeed.
Do you have any idea why her life was so unhappy?
Well, I think Marilyn grew up in a very unstable environment in many ways, never having a real family, but being shuttled from foster home to foster home. So perhaps there is some of that instability that gave her some unhappiness. And I also think that she never really quite found herself. There was an insecurity there that she didn't really believe in herself as much as she might have.
Do you think her childhood was really as rough as she professed? Or?
I don't think it was as rough as she may have professed at times. She had some really terrific foster families that cared for her. But there's still that feeling, no matter how much you love these families and they love you, that it's not your real family and that you're not really permanent, you're not really belonging, you're not really a permanent part of that family.
Do you think it's true that around the time of her death she actually did have plans to remarry Joe DiMaggio?
It has certainly been said she may have remarried Joe. Donald Spoto, I think, is the one that really presented that hypothesis first about that. And he presents some facts that may indeed prove that indeed they were thinking of that. But we'll never know, I guess, for sure.
Do you know who gained ownership of her little dog, which was a gift from Frank Sinatra, named Moth?
I believe Gloria Lovell, her secretary, received the dog after Marilyn's death, and apparently Moth went on to have many more years of happiness after that.
Good.
With a new home.
Her home in Brentwood, which I think she purchased just 7 months before she died for $75,000, is now on the market for $3.6 million.
Correct.
Do you have any plans for buying it?
I want it. I wish I could. 3.6 million is a little above my price range, but it's a wonderful home. It's still a beautiful home, though it's been altered considerably from what it was when Marilyn lived there. But there's just something so wonderful to think that you could live in the home that she wanted to be in for the rest of her life. I wish I could afford it.
I did get a tour of the house when it was on the market. I can't remember, it was in the 70s or 80s. At the time, I think it was like 1.1 million. There is a tile that's been installed at the stoop of the front door of her home, which I understand is still there. And it says in Latin, I have finished my journey, or something to that effect.
Person Perfidia.
Did she have that tile installed?
No, that tile came with the house. It was already there, and I think that's one of the reasons she really liked the house, because it had that wonderful saying, "My journey is ended." It's like she'd come home finally. But the tiles still there, luckily. The tiles Marilyn installed, which were from Mexico, in the kitchen and the bathroom, have been removed. They've altered both of those rooms.
I understand the tile around the fireplace in the living room is still the original.
That tile is still there, yes.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about your collection. Now, you have some really remarkable pieces of Marilyn Monroe's personal possessions.
Right, I have a lot of things that she owned, from her furniture to her wardrobe. They're all on display right now at the Hollywood Museum in Hollywood. We have an exhibit running called Marilyn Remembered, which will be there until the end of August. And it's probably the world's largest exhibit ever put together on Marilyn. And I have 12 of her personal gowns, and as well as film costumes, furniture including her couch, her refrigerator, her coffee table, her chair, her paintings. It's documents. It's amazing. It's a wonderful exhibit. It's a chance to really see for the first time that huge a quantity of Marilyn items put together.
What ultimately will happen to this collection? Will it be like, will you donate it to a museum for a permanent display?
You know, I've never really thought ahead that far to what will eventually happen to it, whether I would put it up for auction or keep it together. I don't know. It's hard for me to think about not owning it someday, but obviously there will be a point where I will no longer be around to own it, and it has to go somewhere. I'll have to think about that.
You have her refrigerator, her sofa, some of the tables that she shopped for in Mexico shortly before she died.
Right.
What did you think of her taste in furniture?
Marilyn had exquisite taste in everything. You look at the clothing she wore, the furniture she bought, the house she purchased. She really had an innate sense of picking things that were elegant and simple in many ways, but things that are almost timeless. You look at her clothing in the exhibit and you go, you could wear that today and still stop traffic. It's so beautiful.
Is there a piece out there that you can think of that you would love to have?
Oh, many pieces, of course.
But is there one like really?
I guess if I had one to pick from, it would probably be the President Kennedy birthday dress.
I think that sold for 1.1 million.
It did, and again, it's above my price range. But that is such a stunning gown.
Now, at the exhibit, along with your personal stuff, there is a Cadillac limousine, which I believe was assigned to Marilyn by 20th Century Fox.
Correct.
In 1962. Who does that belong to now?
The limousine belongs to a woman, I believe, in Palm Springs. I do not know her name, but she purchased it from 20th Century Fox with the understanding that Marilyn did ride in it, and we have a photo at the exhibit of Marilyn sitting in the car.
I think she went to Dodger Stadium with Wally Cox to throw out the first ball for a benefit, and they went in that limousine.
That's very possible. I don't know that.
Was she a friend of Wally Cox normally, or was it just from the movie?
Well, I think she loved Wally Cox as a friend a lot. Whether they were friends before Something's Got to Give, I don't know, but they certainly hit it off during the movie.
Okay, what is your personal take on the cause of Marilyn Monroe's death? What do you think of when you remember
Yes,
it?
everybody always asks that. What do I think? How did she die? Well, I wasn't there, so I cannot give a definitive, but my gut feeling is that it was an accidental overdose. I think it happened a lot. People were on these prescription drugs and they overdosed without realizing it. It even happens today. Witness Michael Jackson recently.
Right. So your organization is called Marilyn Remembered,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
and it can be seen online at marilynremembered.com,
It's actually marilynremembered.org.
marilynremembered.org, and anyone can join.
Anyone can join, and you can also check out my own personal items at a thing called themarilynmonroesite.com.
And then your exhibit is at the Hollywood Museum in Hollywood at the Max Factor building.
Correct.
And you have more things at a museum in Beverly Hills. Which one is that?
Well, it's actually an art gallery in Beverly Hills called the Andrew Weiss Gallery. They have a display of Marilyn photographs on display right now, and I've included 5 of my items from my collection on display there in conjunction with that.
Okay, thank you, Greg. I really appreciate it, and
Thank you, Woody.
congratulations. I think your organization is outstanding and certainly has created its purpose of making sure that Marilyn Monroe is always remembered.
Well, I'm delighted I was able to do that.